Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Power of Your Mind podcast. You're listening to episode 228. Today we're talking about manifestation versus prayer. I'm hypnotist Jim Kellner, co-hosting once again for the incredible Law of Attraction hypnotist. She's also the best-selling author of The Practical Law of Attraction, Align Yourself with the Manifesting Conditions and Successfully Attract Your Desires. She's also the founder of HipTalk.com and, of course, the HypnoClouds apps, which gives you access to over 500, that's right, 500 hypnosis recordings right in the palm of your hand. So be sure to download that app from the various app stores. And with that, let's welcome Victoria Gallagher. Cheers, applause.
Ooh, hello. Hello, Jim. How are you? Thank you for that lovely introduction.
You're welcome. I'm doing great today. How are you?
I am doing wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. We are full steam ahead, making progress on the app, and I'm just dying to share with people the new name, the new look. It's getting
That's
so close, and I've been dialing up that content, been creating lots of new content, all kinds of new ideas flowing through me. And yeah, and and you mentioned about my number one best-selling book, Practical Law of Attraction, which I've just recently had an opportunity to reread again myself. Occasionally, you got to reread your own book.
ooh, seems painful.
I didn't find it
Oh,
painful.
good. That
I
means it's
honestly,
good. Yeah.
it's so weird. I don't mean it's not like trying to brag or anything, but it's so weird because I get a little bit, I don't know. When do you ever have the experience? I wonder if the audience has ever has this experience where somebody else does something, like reads your book or reviews it, or they, whatever, and you almost need to go through it again and explore it again through their eyes.
Hmm.
Do you ever
Interesting.
do that? I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
No, but but here's the thing. You're much more detail oriented than I am. So I can see where that you're conscientious.
Yeah, and then I read it again and I'm like, "Oh yeah, this is I've got nothing to worry about." It's so good.
Cool. Cool.
It's so good. So I love it. I love it. And thinking about writing other books, that's probably really not on the plate though until 2023 if I'm being honest.
It's so funny. I keep telling myself, and we've talked about this before about just taking on too much stuff.
Yes.
And I did the last two things that came my way that I could have said yes to. I said, I cannot even think about that until, and one of them is November. I said, maybe I can look at it in November. And the other one was like in January. I put on my calendar in January. I can consider it then, but otherwise there's nothing more happening right now.
Yeah. Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, I decided, you know how we were talking all year about our event at Hypno Thoughts with the pre-conference. I'm not signing up for a pre-conference.
You're not.
I am
Wow.
not. I am not. I'm gonna
Wow.
I'm gonna I'm gonna speak
Mhm.
for sure. But I'm gonna do maybe a couple 2-hour classes.
Mm.
And that because I just felt overwhelmed with that last year. And so that's something I decided to take off my plate.
And yours was a 3-day, right?
It was a 3-day, it was
Yeah.
3 days, I had 20 people, and it was such an you know what? I mean, it's hard to even say this out loud because the people that went, I mean, it's so transformative. Some of them got certified and became coaches. They,
Mhm.
went through they graduated in the class, and then they took my online, coaching certification, which, I think I'm probably going to, still do something with maybe certifying people online,
Mhm.
but not where everything's all leading up to this one day. That was just too stressful for me. And we talked about this in the last episode where I just I just want to we I like to have my own schedule and my own time and do things in my own way. And that just that was so I'm just experimenting with it this year in 2023. We'll see what happens in 2024. Maybe I'll bring it back in 2024, but this year, yeah, I'm just gonna let myself off the hook on needing to do that.
Good for you. And I applaud that. I'm actually adding another day to my 1 day and then pitching a 3 day and post. And as you said that, I was like, you know what? I need to really set on my calendar that my focus for the month of like June 15th through July 15th is everything for the class.
Yeah.
And that has to be the focus because I realized I didn't leave enough time. And, I mean, it really makes me applaud, the folks like, Ken Guzzo and David Snyder and Jason Lynette, who are constantly at conference after conference, 2, 3, 4 day programs. I mean, really amazing.
They have it dialed in. They
Yeah.
absolutely have that dialed in. And what's cool about that though is because I mean they've been doing it since the beginning of time. So they've really
Right.
built up a pretty good following and of hypnotists and and so they really speak to that crowd. And for me, my following has always been my yeah, my people who buy my recordings. So it's kind
Right.
of like a little bit of
Different
a
niche.
different, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I kind of decided, you know what? I think it's just time. That's what I do. That's what I've always wanted to do. I have had this pressure to speak. And then I just kind of realized, you know what? I love speaking, but, you know, I want to do it at a time in the future when I have like this massive, massive following and the people just come. It's not like something I have to
Right. You don't have to
effort.
hustle them in. Yeah. You
Yeah,
gotta
I'm
work to get them in. True.
not
Yeah.
interested in that anymore.
Well, I'll tell you, it's one of the things I get, I get not a lot, but I get a fair amount of people, emailing me, messaging me, just asking me, when are you going to do your next show at, maybe Tacoma Comedy Club or one of the
Yeah.
local venues or something. And I tell them, you know what, really, it takes so much of my effort to promote the event. And frankly, it doesn't pay as well as some of the other, the private things that I do, if I'm doing a
Mhm.
corporate gig or something, time wise, it just doesn't make sense for me to do them anymore, really. I mean, I still will. By the time this episode comes out, I will most likely have done the Cochise County Fair down in southern Arizona coming up
Ooh.
end of September. So probably by the time people hear this,
Yeah,
it'll passed.
for sure.
But yeah, so I really understand that being having to work to get people in the door, because that's really it becomes the main job, and you don't want it to be the main job.
No, definitely not. And yeah, and so I'm manifesting that. I'm manifesting that, in the down the road, I'm just right now, all my focus is on my app. So I have to not even give that any of my attention. But that down the road, a piece, once the app has millions of subscribers, which I'm
Right.
manifesting, that, I will build my own wonderful, wonderful following of people that just, it just comes naturally and just comes easily and it comes organically and I don't have to hustle and I'm just not into that anymore.
I
you
feel you. I
know?
do.
Yeah.
'Cause you have to do that. You have to be willing to do that. Yeah. It's tough though, because you want to give back to the community. It's so I do. I definitely feel for you.
Yeah. If somebody wants to put a group of people together, I'm more than happy to go and speak at that group. I just am not going to do all the work to get them there.
Yeah. And that's why I'm like, I'm not actively pursuing like the public gigs, like the comedy clubs and stuff. I haven't sent out my avails to them and stuff. But if they called me up, Jim, you want to come do, I'll do it. I'm happy to do it. I love doing it. I really do.
Mhm.
As I know
Mhm.
you love doing it too. It's just, but yeah, thinking about where time is better spent. You can't do everything. So you got to pick. Right.
Yeah, definitely. And I have this beautiful studio. I just want to make the most out of sitting in
Yeah.
here and making recordings and writing amazing content. And that's what I'm really, really good at. I mean, that's what I started doing. And that's what I'm going to, I'm just like going back to my roots.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
And that as we've talked about in the past, um is just making those decisions. And in fact, it was one of the things that I think you told me like last year. I got from one of your podcasts. I think it was I was just trying to do too many things. And
Hmm.
um yeah, you can do a lot of things poorly or a couple of things well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, man, and that's not to say that you're doing anything poorly. I know you're doing amazing stuff all the time. Um, so let's start with the basics. Obviously we have a lot of longtime listeners, but there are some folks out there, they maybe don't even know what manifesting is. So can you start off with the basics? I mean, like what is manifestation?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're like new to this podcast or this channel and you haven't heard me talk about manifestation, or maybe you just kind of want to brush up on your definition or understand how I like to talk about it, it's really there's nothing magical about manifestation. It's simply about creating something and and putting that into reality. And it starts with getting in touch with the power of your thoughts and your feelings. But with manifestation, we own we are the owners, we are the source, we are the creators of our own reality. We are doing it. We are thinking, I'm going to create this, and we manifest it, we create it, we make it happen.
Love it. We are creating our reality. Very
Mhm.
good. And so then what is prayer?
So, my interpretation, my definition of prayer is when we pray, we are asking for guidance. We are asking for help. We're asking for intervention from some, something separate from us, from a higher power. So, prayer, in a way, it's similar, but it's different than manifestation, because prayer is really kind of about leaving that outcome to God, to source, to the universe, whatever you want to call it, whatever you believe in. And it's kind of considered, asking for help, sort of, like I said, from outside of yourself.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a really, I love, I'd never really thought of it that way. It's a really interesting take on that. And
How do you think of prayer? What
mm,
what is your
well, I hadn't thought of the difference between the two.
Mhm.
And it really does, it does make you wonder, like, you can either ask for someone else to help, or you can take responsibility, and you can be in control of your future. I'm thinking of the phrase, God who helps those who help themselves, right?
Oh,
So
yes. I think,
so
so much. I mean, that almost like we almost don't even need to do the podcast
right,
if
if you just do
with
that, right.
just
Done, good night.
just think of that term, because it's really that's how you blend the two, I believe. God helps those who help themselves. I love that.
Yeah, um really cool. So I mean, so obviously they don't work in the same way. So or at least they don't seem like they do. I mean, there's probably some people that might disagree. I don't know.
And as so much of this is interpretation. And I'm really careful when I start delving into things that have to do with God, or maybe even considered religion or prayer, or any of those, that kind of vocabulary. I'm always super super delicate and careful with that, because of the fact that so many people have very firm beliefs about what these things are. And for me, I don't. I'm actually very open minded when it comes to what these things are. This is currently what my interpretation is on what is prayer. And so some people believe that manifestation and prayer are the exact same thing. It's like you sit down, you either it's just a different word. I'm praying for this, I'm manifesting it, right? We always are um, whenever something bad's happening in the world, it's like, oh, I'm sending you positive energy, or I'm praying for you, or, and so, and a lot of times it can kind of seem like it's the same thing, that they're both relying on the power of our thoughts, the power of our feelings. And other people believe that they're completely different things, because, manifestation happens within our own consciousness, and prayer is kind of like happening beyond your own consciousness. But it really kind of comes down to, we can't manifest something if we don't believe that it's possible. But praying, on the other hand, is asking for help in a way that may put what's impossible, and make that, more possible, by asking for help and guidance from a source that's beyond our own level of consciousness, our own control.
Wow. I mean, it really does. It really is boy, it's hard not to possibly tread on people's beliefs here. But what I will say is that when we talk about God, I think that there's a lot of different versions and quote unquote gods that are worshipped, and I think that there are some that are more, like we are in control of our own universe and that kind of a thing. So this is a tricky topic to tread on.
It can be. It definitely can be. Like I said, I'm always really careful. I'll just give you a little background. I mean, it's like, I grew up in a household, that where I, as a child, it was, kind of a Christian oriented household, but nothing like, like we didn't really talk about it. We just, like, it was sort of like the right thing to do every once in a while, to go to church on Sunday, and go to Sunday school, and kind of learn about God. And then I had this experience where, in high school, a bunch of friends in the swing choir that I was involved in were born again Christians. And so I decided, oh, I think I'll go ahead and do that. I was asked by some of my friends if I wanted to do that, and so I did. I became a born again Christian, and then I moved to California. This is like, all like pretty much within a handful of years. I moved to California, lived with my dad, who's completely opposite, and he comes from a Orthodox Jewish family. And because so my dad's been married many times, and he one of his wives obviously was my mother, who's a non-Jew. And in the Orthodox Jewish tradition, my father's mother, um whatever, denounced him, or
Mm.
basically disowned him, just disowned him. And so he starts kind of educating me a little bit about, like Jewish religion, and so there's a little bit of conflict between these two different religions. And so here I am at like 18, 19 years old, and we had in LA this bookstore called the Bodhi Tree, and it was a spiritual bookstore. And I went in there, and there were all these different books about all these different religions. I mean, it was like such an eye-opening experience. I mean, they had like every religion, Buddhism and Christianity, and I can't even like I mean, there's uh, 10, 20, 30 different religions, in this bookstore. And I'm like, how do you choose?
Right.
I mean, if I go to this section, that the God over there in that section is just not going to approve. And I'm like, how do you? And so I just made a decision right then and there. It's like, it's just not for me. to choose, I mean, like, I think just like anything, there's no right or wrong, so that's my take on it. There's just no right or wrong. There's no bad or good decision that you can make about it. And I respect everybody's decision. I respect everybody's religion, but it was at that moment that I just kind of decided that, like, you know what, there's some being out there, maybe, I mean, how did they manage to get the sun just so perfectly in alignment with the earth and the moon? Like, somebody thought of that. Some higher intelligence is out there and probably, created us, and probably would not make us make some kind of decision that's going to impact what's going to happen to us after we
Right.
die.
That does. Yeah, I agree. I think there's something larger than us, but I can't imagine this all powerful, all seeing supreme being penalizing us for not making the right choice out of like 300 different choices, or
Yeah.
more.
Exactly. And, I read this book. I don't know if you've ever read it before, by Neil Donald Walsh, called Conversations with God.
Oh yeah,
And if there was a religion, like, and uh, he was the, whatever
profit.
yeah, he would be the one I would follow, because what he says in that book makes so much sense to me, that I believe in that philosophy more than anything else. And so that's kind of that's, if you wanted to peek into Victoria Galler's belief system, that's that's where this stuff comes from. And so anyway, like, I think you were going to ask about whether this manifestation stuff is like against religion or God. And I absolutely uh believe that, God, is accepting of it all, and so, like, just because you pray, doesn't mean that you don't take action toward what you want. You can pray and you can take action. But manifestation to me is a little bit more about, you as a being, taking those actions and putting in the work. You bring the positive energy into what you want. You visualize what you want. You focus on what you want, and manifest it. You bring it into reality, and manifesting it only improves your chances of receiving what you want. Your visualization, your thinking, your positivity.
And manifestation is non-denominational, so anybody can do it, right?
Exactly, exactly. You don't have to think, and it's not against any religion,
Right.
and it's not, and that's one of the things too. I mean, some people get very concerned about law of attraction and manifesting that are religious, because
Mhm.
they think that it's against religion, and it's not. It's definitely, I mean, at least, I mean, I haven't opened all 300 different, Bibles,
Yeah.
but, even in, and I haven't even read through the whole Christian Bible. Like, I've read parts of it. It's kind of like, I, to me, that has seemed like an impossible feat, that like anybody it'd be like reading the dictionary or an encyclopedia, like an entire encyclopedia. I don't know how people do it. Um, but I'm a slow reader. And so anyway, all I was going to say is, like, the certain quotes though that I have read in the Bible that have to do with law of attraction and manifestation. I mean, like, there's so many quotes in there that validate manifestation and law of attraction, that they're not coming to me at this moment. I know there's like dozens and dozens of them, but in this very moment, they're not coming to me. But just God created us in the likeness of the creator and
Well,
um
and
go ahead.
Jesus said, everything that I have done, you can do as well. You know,
Yes. Yes,
uh,
I love that. I love that.
and
And,
even just God helps those who help themselves. I mean, that's a very famous one that we talked about earlier.
absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I mean, and honestly, and I think we, when you say that we could do anything that Jesus could do, the only thing that separates what we can do from what he could do is our belief,
Mhm.
our belief. And I think it's, he, was the Christed one, but the Christed, I think that has something to do with your belief.
Mhm.
That's you've decided, you've owned your greatness, basically.
Yeah.
And there's not many people who have really, really, if anybody, I mean, who here can walk on water? Not, or turn water into wine, not many people. But there's been many people. I mean, if anybody, I've never met a human being who's walked on water before.
Yeah.
Maybe there's somebody out there that can. I've seen Chris Angel do some interesting
Right. I was thinking David Blaine, maybe.
things. David Blaine. But I think it really, that's the one thing that separates us is our level of belief. And maybe it's, some beliefs are just, too human to get past.
Yeah. Um, and I'm thinking back to, what you said about, prayer is kind of, and then I got a comment about this, but, prayer being, is asking for help. Um, I mean, really, I mean, if you're out there and you're wondering, I mean, manifestation, you got to work. Prayer, you just kick back and do some prayers. I mean, why not just pray?
It's true. And there have been times where I think some people might also kind of confuse the praying with manifesting, or some people might actually think that manifestation or using law of attraction is no more than praying.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's a distinction, and the distinction, it really comes down to, I don't believe that you get something for nothing.
Oh,
And
oh, that's
yeah,
good.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. No
and
kidding.
and
Right.
so, so like when people are, it's like, I'm just going to keep praying. I'm going to keep
Yeah.
praying for it, praying, 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 praying. And they pray, but then I think that they don't realize how their prayers are answered. God doesn't just put a new car in your parking lot. God doesn't just put a new, spouse in your bed.
Right.
The prayers are answered ultimately through signs, through things that we need to do there, and so I don't think that the prayers get answered in the way that a lot of people are hoping that they will. And so praying is not enough. Ultimately, if you want to manifest, you're going to, it requires some effort on your part. And ultimately, what it really comes down to is that we are co-creators. So it's really kind of like you're praying.
Oh, teamwork.
Um, it's teamwork.
Teamwork makes the dream
Absolutely.
work, right?
Teamwork makes the dream work. So when you pray, you get the guidance. You're praying for guidance,
Mm,
and rather than praying for stuff,
mhm.
praying for a miracle. And there's all these stories about how people have been they're asking for something, and then God sent somebody. But of course, that somebody, they didn't see them as God. They saw them as just an ordinary person. But when he sends guidance, he, she, it, the universe, whatever, sends guidance, you have to take action on that guidance. You can't expect God to do all the work. You can't expect God to do everything for you. If you ask,
God's busy. Come on, people.
if you ask for healing,
Yeah.
okay, and then God puts a book in front of your face that
Right.
says, this is how you,
Should eat or drink, or
this is how you need to eat and drink, then you got to read that book. You got to read that book.
Yeah.
And, God is, so it's, I think God works in mysterious ways, and it's up to you to like really pay attention and to what's happening. But, so like when people are praying, I think it's like they're sort of expecting a miracle. But when they come from a place of I'm manifesting this, then it's putting you in the driver's seat. Even though maybe God does step in to help you. Maybe the universe, maybe you do get a little bit of guidance, but you're more like taking ownership and control and responsibility for manifesting. You're empowering yourself to know that like, hey, if it's to be, it's up to me. And you get to choose what you will and won't do. You get to choose what you're focused on. You get to choose pretty much everything. Whereas when we're just praying for something, just praying and praying and praying and praying and praying, you're gonna be waiting a long, long, long time. And maybe just kind of eventually giving up hope. But so I think the two actually work very well together. And ultimately, when you're, praying and you're receiving guidance from your higher power, you feel like, you're living your life a little bit more according to your destiny, your purpose. And yeah, so that's sort of that's my take on the difference and similarities and how I feel about that.
I was just reminded of a couple of things. One of them was, I reminded there's a saying that says, when you pray for patience, God doesn't give you patience. God gives you opportunities to develop your patience. God gives you that terrible traffic, the rude waiter, all these things.
I learned to stop praying for patience many years ago. I have fully developed my patience, and I want to be less tolerant. That's actually what I'm praying to be less tolerant, because I think that the more tolerant and patient you are, even though those are good virtues to have to a degree, all virtues can also turn into
True.
an obstacle at some point. And so if
Yeah,
you become too patient, then you never get anywhere.
that's so true.
Yeah.
Even like we talked about last episode with hiring staff and contractors and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a balance. And I think there's a balance with everything in life. There is I mean, gosh, if we could develop, one characteristic that can really help us with our manifestation. I mean, it truly is the art of balance.
Yeah. I was just thinking about a friend of mine years ago. She was very religious, and we were talking on the phone one time, and she was like, "Oh, I really need will you please say a prayer for me to pass this test that's coming up for some class?" And I was thinking, "Well, why don't you just study for the test and I'll pray for world peace or something, right?"
Yeah, definitely.
I mean,
Definitely.
go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I say, what if I only have a certain amount of prayers in me? God gives us so many prayers, and I just helped you to ace your test, and now mom dies of cancer, because that was dark. Sorry, but
Ooh. Yeah, I'm not sure, I'm not sure where I stand on if there's a limited number of prayers that we have within us. or, but no,
But what if?
I do hear I do 100% hear what you're saying. It's like, there are certain things that we should always be like, spend your prayers wisely,
That's a good one. Yeah. Spend your prayers wisely. Yeah.
like choose your battles, choose your prayers, and choose like, what can I do? And, it's like almost like the little boy who cried wolf,
Mhm.
It's like if you're asking, asking, asking all the time when there are things that are within you to
Yeah.
accomplish, then sometimes you know, a lot of the things I think that we are put in position in this life, our purpose is to manifest something. So much of like what I believe, so much of what we were put here to manifest is part of our life's purpose and part of our life's path. Meaning that in order for us to manifest the thing that is our purpose, we also have to develop ourselves to become
Mm.
the person who is able to manifest that. And so that's how we grow. And so the manifestation, the desire, in a way, is just that carrot that's dangling out there, but it's just part of our path. And so whatever we already have within us, whatever we have already developed the character and the strength to do, we do. And whatever we don't have, then we ask for God to show us, well, how can I become more of that kind of character? How can I develop more of that quality? And I think that's the more empowering question to ask, is not like, what can you give me?
Yeah.
um, what
How
can
can
I
I
get?
become?
But how can I become the type of person that can create this life? Give a man a fish versus teach a man to fish.
That's really wonderful. I love the way you said that. Yeah, it's really important. I think there's probably got to be um, a lot of people relieved. I mean, we don't have to choose, right? We can do both.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like manifesting your desires and praying for guidance on, who we're supposed to become, the qualities that we're meant to develop, the path that we're meant to take. Just getting guidance. Just like you said, the team work makes the dream work. So they go hand in hand. If you want to leave the outcome completely up to God, that's fine. I can't say one way or another if that works. I've never done that. I've never tried that. I've always pretty much gotten involved. But I think it's, your manifestation's probably going to happen much more quickly if you do get involved, rather than just leaving the entire thing to be answered by God.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like you're saying that in your opinion, it's probably best to do both. But you're not really saying that I've got to go to church for this or choose one of those, you know, 3,000 religions or something like that.
Right. Well, first it was 30, then it was 300, now it's 3,000. I don't even know how many. Maybe there's new ones being developed all the
I
time.
think,
I
I
don't
think
know.
I read one time that like from the history of mankind, there are like 3,000 different gods. I think there's about 300 operating right now or something. But there's probably like 30 top ones. I don't know.
And again, how do you choose? And,
Yeah.
and so I just think that we all have our own interpretation of prayer and what God means to us. And so if you were brought up going to church, you believe in a particular God, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, whoever, then keep doing what you're doing. I don't say stop, stop doing that, stop believing that. If that is making you happy, if that is rewarding, if that is where you find your spiritual strength, then keep doing that. And if you want to start now to pray to a God and you don't have a religious group that you're associated with, then you know you can just pray for guidance on that and do whatever feels right and aligns with you. Don't do something just because your family is doing it. Your family tells you this is right or wrong, your friends, or like I had so many different outside influences trying to steer me one way and steering me. And I'm glad that they did, because it was like the quickest way for me to make that determination for myself that, like, I'm just going to kind of believe there's a higher source out there. Um and but just, think of it however it feels right to you, and pray to that. I mean, God could be your animals running around your house. God could be a tree, God could be the sun, it could be just a special feeling, it could be like, something that you see when you close your eyes and you go to meditate. There's just so many ways to pray. There's not just one right way.
Wow. Thank goodness for that, because there's so many. 30,000, right? Is that
30,000,
let's keep going.
300,000, 3,000,000. Yeah, we could, maybe I'll write a book. So many ways to pray. 30,000 ways to pray. You could find prayer and, drinking this old morning coffee. I still have my morning coffee cup here. That's how busy I've been.
Wow. Wow. Let me ask you this. Do you drink cream in your coffee?
I do. I do.
Since your morning coffee, do you drink any now?
Like, are you asking, like, does it go bad throughout the day
Well,
inside the coffee?
this is what I think about, because like I will, if I leave the half and half out of the refrigerator for like an hour, I'll throw it away. But if I've put it in my coffee, 3 hours later, I'll still drink it. I don't.
It's so weird. Like, coffee, like, makes what's the word? Voids out the
Okay.
coffee voids out the creamer going bad.
Yeah, I guess so. It's something that's occurred to me recently. I don't know.
But I think it has a relatively forgiving shelf life, because when you go to a restaurant and they've got all those little creamers out on the table, I mean, like, how often do they change those out?
Right. Yeah. We'll have to ask one of the 3 million gods, I guess.
Exactly. Ask God if this is okay to drink. I think it is.
Hey, we covered a lot of good stuff. Ultimately, you can pray, you can manifest, do both. Remember, God's going to help those who help themselves. Don't be a lazy butt, do some work. Not that, I mean, and hey, look, if you're just a big prayer, good for you, because there are some people that just pray for hours and hours. Good for you if that's your belief system. But anyway, I'm afraid of offending people. So
and honestly, I admire people who, like, kind of, I mean, it at some level, like, at some level, I still kind of feel like you got to get involved in the process at some level. But I admire people. I don't have as much faith in that everything's going to be done for me as other people do. And
yeah,
if that's your belief system and that's working for you, and you're manifesting based on praying alone, hey, send me an email, let me
right.
know
Yeah,
what you're doing, because I believe in a lot of effort. And with when it comes to my manifestations, I always get what I want. I'm considered a master of manifestation. I do get what I want, but it's not without effort.
yes. Victoria, thank you. It's been so much fun talking to you again, and very enlightening as well.
Thank you. Yes, it's always fun talking to you. And just to the listeners out there, I happened to mention last week on the last episode that I am currently experimenting with doing a drawing in the month of November. So this will go all the way through the month of November Anybody who reviews the Power of Your Mind podcast, wherever you listen to this podcast, leave us a review. And obviously we love 5-star reviews, but leave an honest review and rating, whatever it is. And send me a screenshot of that. And anybody who sends a screenshot is going to be entered into a drawing to win a free custom hypnosis recording by yours truly, valued at $400.
$400 million. Right.
Well, you know what? It may actually be worth $400 million
Oh, it
to the
could.
right person.
You talked to, I know you mentioned before, I help you to manifest this or that. And one of them was a house. And you actually did help someone who, remember, someone talked to us at the conference about how you helped them to manifest a house, and a house, is worth a lot of money. So, I mean, it really could, you could be manifesting hundreds, millions of dollars.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for reminding me about that.
Such a great story. I love that.
It was definitely, definitely. Well, thank you guys. Thank you, Jim. And look us up. Go to jimkellner.com, go to victoriamgallagher.com, and follow us everywhere on our social media. And tell all your friends to listen to the Power of Your Mind podcast. And have a wonderful day, week, month. And we will see you next time. Bye now.
Ciao.